Hello everyone, I'm Sana Makbool. As you all know that Kashmir has been a topic for much debate since many decades. Since last July, after Burhan Wani's martyrdom in Kashmir, there has been a surge in violence in the occupied valley. We know that hundreds of people have been murdered. We know that thousands have been injured. We know that the people in Kashmir are suffering. We know that there needs to be much that has to be done to solve this issue. Kashmir has been an internationally recognized dispute, and the people of Kashmir are calling the international community for attention to end their suffering and their plight. We have with us in our studios today the former Norwegian Prime Minister from 1997 to 2000 and from 2001 to 2005. He is also a former president of the Christian Democratic Party of Norway, and he has also founded and is currently the president of the Oslo Center. He has also been a member of the Norwegian Parliament from 1973 to 2005, has been a Minister of Foreign Affairs and Minister of Church and Education. He has also served as the UN Secretary General Special Envoy to the Horn of Africa in 2006 to 2007. We welcome Mr. Kjell Magne Bondevik. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us today. It is an honor to meet you. We'll move on with Kashmir. We know that you have visited the valley, and we know that you have spoken to people in Kashmir, and there have been blatant human rights violations going on in the valley since long. And it is something very, very clear to all of us that the people of Kashmir are suffering. What is your point of view regarding the situation there?
It is very serious. I have been to Pakistan many times, and I'm a friend of Pakistan. I have many good friends here and good friends in the Pakistani diaspora in Norway, but it was my very first visit to Kashmir. I've heard about Kashmir. I wanted to see with my own eyes what is going on. And it is no doubt that people are suffering. It's serious. Many people have lost their lives, are injured, and for me it is clear that we need a political solution on this conflict. First of all, I think that we from the international community should contribute to bring this issue higher up on the international agenda.
Right.
Now it's all about Syria, it's about Yemen, it's about South Sudan, of obvious reasons. Kashmir is almost forgotten. And I want to contribute to bring this up on the agenda so more people internationally can be engaged to get a peaceful solution.
Right. As you rightly mentioned the fact that it is very important for this issue to be highlighted in the international community so that a peaceful resolution can be achieved regarding the Kashmir dispute. But we know that there has been an iron curtain for the valley, for the people of Kashmir. There has been a problem in information coming in and going out of the valley. There is a deployment of thousands of Indian occupation troops in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and they are suffering extreme conditions. Not only are they suffering due to the curfew that has been imposed, but they're also suffering harsh winters, and they're also suffering due to a lack of medical facilities and food items. And of course it's very important for this to be highlighted, but we know that there has been a blockage of information coming out from the Kashmir Valley. How important do you think it is to end that, and how can that be achieved?
I think the first step should be now to bring out more information about this serious situation, because people are suffering. I also visited 2 refugee camps, and I saw with my own eyes people who have been fleeing out of India over to the Pakistani side, and the stories they told. I was here for the very first time primarily to learn about the conflict.
Right.
And so I will be cautious, not drawing very clear conclusion after only one visit. And of course it could be of interest also to be on the Indian side and to hear how they assess the situation. But now the most important thing is more information, more focus on the conflict, higher up on the agenda, and I think that the United Nations should again be much more engaged, and I hope that the new Secretary General of the UN, Mr. Guterres, whom I know, we were colleagues as Prime Ministers, that he really will take this issue.
Of course, it's very, very important that this issue is highlighted, and the UN has a responsibility to play. Of course, there are the UN Security Council resolutions in place for this matter to be resolved. It's really important. But another aspect that we'd also like to focus on is the fact that there has been a use of pellet guns for the first time. We don't find an example like this anywhere else in the world, and this is against unarmed civilians who are innocent and who are just protesting for their right, which is their fundamental right to define their freedom. But it is saddening to see the fact that it's still continuing, and it is being used against people who are innocent, and it needs to be stopped, of course. How do you look at the fact that the people of Kashmir, while of course a lot of debate is going on the resolution of the dispute and how it needs to end, they are suffering every day, and there needs to be an urgent attention by the international community, and we seem to not have the time just for condemnations. There needs to be a time for action.
Absolutely. The international community has to act now, soon. There are some main principles that must be the foundation for a solution, and that is respect for human rights, it's the respect for democracy, and it is the principle of self-determination. I will not describe the final solution.
Right.
But I think that representatives from all the parties concerned, and that means of course Pakistan, India, leaders on the Pakistani side and the Indian side of Kashmir should come together, maybe facilitated by the UN. And my experience from other peace processes where Norway has been involved is that it has to start in an informal way.
Right. Not
start with a formal format around a negotiating table, but let people meet informally, learn each other to know, build up confidence, because if there is a lack of trust, you will never have a solution. So you must build up confidence between the parties concerned. And then, as a next step, you may start on negotiations. There are different options on what the solution should be. But the people of Kashmir should decide themselves. Based on the UN resolutions, I think it should be a referendum at the end of the day, where you have some clear options and the people decide themselves.
Right, of course it's very important for any dispute, any political issue to be resolved by meaningful dialogue, and that is the only way forward to come to a peaceful settlement of any dispute. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has time and again made efforts to highlight this issue in the international community. He has repeatedly mentioned it on multiple fora, including the United Nations and other regional fora as well. There have been efforts made to bring India forward for a peaceful dialogue also. But we see that it's been one-sided for very long. There have been many efforts made from the Pakistani side, but until and unless both parties negotiate and have a meaningful dialogue, this is not possible. Do you not think it is a responsibility of the international community to put more pressure on India to sort of address this issue urgently?
Yes, I would like also to talk to Indian leaders.
Right.
And to find out more why they have been so reluctant to go into dialogue and negotiations about the issue, because it's obvious that India must be on board if you should find a lasting solution. Now I have visited Pakistani Kashmir. Maybe one day I could be on the other side. I have to learn more about this, but I can assure you that I want to do my utmost to bring more focus on the Kashmir issue. People in Kashmir are suffering. They deserve a peaceful solution.
Right. Like you said, it's really important that India is also involved in the meaningful dialogue as well. It's very important for you to visit both sides as well and to talk to leadership on both sides as well to see and assess the situation on ground. And that has always been the case. But we've seen that India has time and again refused even tourists and any fact-finding mission that would have liked to come and visit and assess the situation on ground. And that seems to be a problem, because it is very important for independent bodies to go and assess and witness themselves what is going on for any resolution to be achieved in this regard. And we have seen that until and unless that doesn't happen, there is no way forward.
Yes, I do agree. It seems hopeless, but we must never give up. We must never give up. I'm born optimistic.
Right.
And I think one day we will have a peaceful resolution. But I think to start with a fact-finding mission, so we can bring out the knowledge from both sides, and maybe UN also should appoint a new special envoy. There have been earlier, but as far as I know, currently there is no special envoy for Kashmir. But the issue is that important that it deserves a special envoy for the UN Secretary General who could use his or her time to contribute to a solution. But at the end of the day, it is the parties, the Kashmiri people first of all, and India and Pakistan, who must contribute to a solution.
Right. Another issue that I'd like to highlight is, of course, the fact that there have been draconian laws in Kashmir since a while now. The Indian occupation forces can basically get away with most things without facing prosecution or trial. Some people have called it a license to kill because they don't face any prosecution or trial for any atrocities that they have committed. And this deprives the people of Kashmir with their basic fundamental rights. They're not protected by law. They're not allowed to protest. Even their funerals are not safe. And this calls for very, very serious and urgent attention by the international community, like you said. But how important do you think this fact is, considering that a protection by law is a civilian's basic right, and without that protection, they're deprived of any sort of safety or security?
All individuals have the right to be protected by law.
Right.
But we know that in military conflicts, very often that is not the case. But that is a principle which we must try to follow. But I have to learn more about this also from the Indian point of view, and that's what I hope to do in future.
Right, like you said that you have spoken to families on your visit to Jammu and Kashmir, and you've spoken to refugees there. We know that there have been families who have been divided since decades, and some of their family members are living on the other side of the river while they stay here, and they have not been able to see each other for such a long time. How saddening do you think this is, that there are people who have to go through such painful suffering every single day, and even their funerals they have to observe across the river, or any sort of arrangement isn't possible because this dispute has been going on.
Separation of families is one of the most sad things we can experience. We see this in Korea, on the Korean peninsula. Families in north and south are separated.
Right.
We saw it in Germany. The families were divided between east and west of Germany. Fortunately, they are now united. One day we hope that people in Kashmir can be united, and maybe also one day in Korea.
Like you said that you visited Pakistan a few times, but it's your first visit to Jammu and Kashmir. It's very different for somebody who's looking at a situation from the outside, and then for someone who actually goes and observes the situation. How did your perspective change, or how did you see the situation and the gravity of the situation really in Kashmir, and your view on it before and after?
I think after a short visit I got a better insight in what is going on and the reasons why things are going on as they do, and why this conflict is still unresolved. And the Oslo Center, where I'm the founder and president, we have not projects and have not been engaged in this area so far. But the impressions I have got, and they have really moved me, will lead to a further engagement for Kashmir. I will do my best, and I will bring the attention to the Norwegian government, to the UN, and others who can have an impact.
Right, we're in conversation with Sean McNair Bondevik. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
डैंड्रफ का बायस बन सकते हैं। क्लियर मैन न्यूट्रल ऑयल कॉम्प्लेक्स के साथ जिल्द की तह तक सफाई करे और दे अनबीटेबल डैंड्रफ प्रोटेक्शन। क्लियर मैन अनबीटेबल डैंड्रफ प्रोटेक्शन।
Buy a 4G smartphone from Daraz.pk and get an amazing song offer. A new SIM, a new dream. Song 4G.
धूल, मिट्टी और जरासीम आपकी सर की जिल्द में जमकर डैंड्रफ का बायस बन सकते हैं। क्लियर मैन न्यूट्रल ऑयल कॉम्प्लेक्स के साथ जिल्द की तह तक सफाई करे और दे अनबीटेबल डैंड्रफ प्रोटेक्शन। क्लियर मैन अनबीटेबल डैंड्रफ प्रोटेक्शन।
Welcome back. We are here with the former Prime Minister of Norway, Mr. Kjell Magne Bondevik. So before the break, we were talking about how you went to Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and of course you spoke to the people there and the refugees there. And it's really important for somebody to go and meet the people in person to get a real idea about the situation there. Just like that, it's really important for all of this to be documented and to be on record, so that it can be highlighted in a more appropriate way in the international community and everybody can be made aware. Like you mentioned earlier, there have been issues which are very intensely highlighted in the world, be it Syria or Iraq or Palestine, and of course rightly so, there are human rights violations and there are people suffering there as well. But Kashmir is also an issue which the people of Kashmir have been facing since decades. How important do you think it is to document these human rights violations that are occurring in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and how can we do this so that the international community is made aware?
Called CNN effect. And by that we mean that if broad TV stations are covering a conflict, the focus will be there.
Right.
And people will be aware of the situation. And of course, if Kashmir could succeed in getting more media attention to what is going on, that is important in itself. And I know from my own experience for many years in politics that politicians, they are listening and watching to media. But secondly, I think that our world organization, the UN, could and should do more. They have now got a new Secretary General, Mr. Guterres, former Prime Minister of Portugal, whom I know very well. And he is very energetic. And maybe if you could succeed to get him to come to Kashmir,
right,
to see the situation with his own eyes. And of course he should be on both sides, the Indian and Pakistani side. That will also pay more attention to the situation. And maybe he could appoint a special envoy for this case. There has been before, but as far as I know, it's not a current special envoy. And also a fact-finding mission that could make documentation, a report on what is going on. This could be some means on how to get more focus on the Kashmir conflict.
Right, of course, like you mentioned, that the UN Secretary General is a big influencer in the international community. And of course, the UN is a really, really important organization for the countries to go to. It provides a platform for any international dispute to be resolved. And of course, they have the power to do a lot. We know that the UN Security Council resolutions are in place, but it has been a very, very long time to the Kashmir dispute, and there has been no resolution despite the resolutions existing and being in place. What do you think seems to be lacking? What do you think needs to be done more to bring this urgently on the table, to have a resolution urgently? Because there is no time to delay. There hardly is anything left now for us to wait for, because there are people in Kashmir who are suffering every day. How do you think the UN can really increase its influence on this issue?
I do agree that it's time for a new debate in the UN, both in the General Assembly and in the Security Council, about the Kashmir conflict, because it's so serious and it's unresolved. But it's always good as a basis for a debate to have a report. And if you first could have a fact-finding mission, making a report, issue it to the UN, and on that basis the UN could have a debate.
Right.
And maybe make a new, more updated resolution. That could be a way forward.
Right, and another thing which is important here is, of course, like you highlighted, that there are three parties that are really important for the resolution of this issue, which is India, Pakistan, and the people of Kashmir, or the leadership of Kashmir. But we also know that in addition to the human rights violations that are being carried out in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the leadership and the senior leadership in Kashmir have been undergoing detention and illegal house arrests, and they are not allowed to to go about their political lives, to address political rallies, to carry out protests. And it's really important for that leadership to be engaged also in the resolution of this dispute. But without an end to the illegal detention or house arrests of these leaders, we can achieve nothing. How do you think it's important to ensure first and foremost the fact that all the parties are involved in the resolution?
Of course, that is a responsibility for the UN and for Pakistan and India, that all relevant leaders should be released and could come to the table. But from my experience, it's most important to start with an informal gathering of the leaders, where you learn each other to know, where you gradually can build up necessary confidence before starting formal negotiations around the table. Because if you don't trust each other, you will fail. So confidence building measures from both sides is the most important first step.
Right, and like you said, that you've visited Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and you've seen and met the people firsthand. How do you think, in your own personal capacity, your experiences and your impressions in Azad Jammu and Kashmir can help you better influence and better highlight this issue in the international community? Of course, whatever that you've learned about this issue, and whatever you will learn eventually, hopefully, if you visit the other side of the border as well, is going to be really, really important for any political leadership of any country to have a voice, of course, is really important. And how do you think, in your personal capacity, your voice can help resolve the Kashmir dispute?
Of course, your voice will be much stronger if you can refer to what you have seen and heard, not only learned through books and newspapers and TV and so on. That is my very clear experience. So I will use my visit to Kashmir now to raise my voice and ask for the international community's engagement, and I would also like to learn more from how they see it from the Indian point of view.
Right. We know that Pakistan has multiple times made efforts to highlight this issue, like I mentioned before as well, in the international community and on multiple fora as well. How do you see these efforts by Pakistan, and how significant do you think it is that Pakistan has been giving moral, political and diplomatic support to the plight of Kashmiris since the beginning?
Well, I cannot judge. It's not my task for the time being. I was going up there primarily to learn, and I also want to learn from the Indian side. So my main mission will be to raise more awareness about the situation.
Right. So, even in your visit to Azad Jammu and Kashmir, when you spoke to the refugees and the people in Azad Jammu and Kashmir, how did you see the fact that their lives are on a standstill in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and the fact that their situation is something which really needs international community's attention? You said there were many moving stories that the refugees and the people of Kashmir told you. Would you like to share it to us and for our viewers also, what sort of situation the people of Kashmir are facing?
Yeah, I met both young and older people who came from the Indian side as refugees because of human rights violations. And they told me about their suffering, why they left their homeland. And you don't do that without very strong reasons. I saw with my own eyes how they are taken care of on the Pakistani side. That was impressive. They gave them shelter, houses where they could live. But more than that, they gave them education, training to do some jobs, and gradually some of them could be integrated in the local community and leave the refugee camps. To live in a refugee camp over a long time is not a good situation for anybody.
Right.
So this is a situation which must be brought to an end, and it can only be brought to an end by a peaceful political solution on the conflict.
Right. Like you mentioned that, of course, you met with people who are both young and old. We know that since decades this issue has been going on, and violations have been committed by the Indian side. But we also know that now the youth is also involved in the struggle for freedom from the Indian occupation forces. And we know that many young people have been deliberately targeted. The use of pellet guns especially has blinded thousands of young men and women. And we've seen so many people facing the consequences of such serious actions committed by the Indian occupation forces. The fact that the youth have been targeted, and the fact that there is no longer going to be a younger generation who is going to be active or who can really take forward the Kashmiri struggle. How do you see that this fact that the young people of Kashmir are being targeted is going to affect the struggle of the Kashmiris, and is something which amounts to a serious violation?
Well, wherever it happens all over the world, if children and young people's future are destroyed, it's a tragedy. Every individual human being has an unlimited value in itself, because we are all born equal and by God. And for a country and for a nation, it's a special tragedy if young people are killed or injured or the future is destroyed. So it's especially moving when you to listen to such stories like that. But one day I also would like to go to the Indian side and hear what they are saying, because if you should contribute to find a solution, you have to listen to both parties.
Right. We also know that the people of Kashmir have been facing these violations and atrocities since a very long time, and there has been an aggressive approach towards the protesters who have been given the label of militancy, and they've been targeted as terrorists. And of course we've had support from nations around the world, because of course this is a matter of human rights violations and not the fact that any Muslim or any particular religion or race or ethnicity is being targeted. The fact that humans are suffering there, and the fact that this is a serious human rights violation which has been carried out in Kashmir since long requires the attention of each and every nation in the world, and each and every member of the international community must respond to the plight of the Kashmiris just on the basis of the fact that they're humans and that their lives are being violated. I'd just like you to give your last comments about what really needs to be done, how serious the situation is, and what is the step forward.
The Kashmir conflict is very serious, much more than people around the world is aware of, because it's focused on other conflicts, not on the Kashmir. So I want more media to go there to report about the situation. I want the United Nations to do more. Maybe the new Secretary General should go there and send a fact-finding mission, maybe appoint a new special envoy, bring it up on the agenda. But first and foremost, it is the parties concerned who have to find the solution. Maybe they should meet first in a more informal format, to learn each other better, to know, to build up confidence before they start more formal negotiations around the table. And it's obvious that around the table you need India, you need Pakistan, you need leaders in Kashmir on both sides. It's up to them to find the final solution. People are suffering and they deserve peace.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. Shal Magne Bondovic. It's been an honor to speak to you, and we're really, really glad that you could visit Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and that your voice will help end the suffering of the people of Kashmir. That was former Prime Minister of Norway and current founder and president of the Opta Center in conversation with us, Mr. Shal Magne Bondovic. That's all for now. Thank you very much for watching.